Guys, this is Xavius. This is going to be a longer video than normal just because of how many mechanics there are, so just make sure to go all the way through. The first thing is just explaining the base mechanics of the fight. So the first is corruption. This is very similar to Cho'Gall and BOT if you did that fight. Basically the same thing. So there's 3 added mechanics to this corruption bar. At 33% corruption, at 0 corruption, first of all, nothing happens. At 33 corruption, you get corruption, crushing shadows. Basically, what this is a add that spawns outside or at the edges of the room and crushes down and basically makes this huge swirly thing that gives corruption and also does quite a bit of damage. So it's pretty important not to get to 33 if you can, but eventually you will, obviously. And basically to get as far away from that circle as possible because it's damage based on proximity. At 66 you get Unfathomable Reality, which spawns smaller pink swirls that basically if you're within 6 yards you'll take damage and gain 5 corruption, and at 100 corruption you will get mind controlled after 20 seconds, but during that 20 seconds you get 150% damage and healing buff. So that's the base mechanic of corruption. At 95%, he actually does his first mechanic, which is called Dream Simulacrum. What this does is it puts half the raid to sleep, and in this sleep phase, you can see them all asleep. In this sleep phase, you do not take any corruption, or any corruption that you do take is removed when you wake up, which is well, if you die, then you wake up. If you become mind controlled, you wake up, and if you outlast that, which you probably won't, I believe it's a minute 30, then you also wake up. So in this phase you take corruption, but it's cleansed. All cooldowns, all mana, everything that is used in this phase is refunded to you once you wake up, so it's a pretty cool mechanic. But yeah, just make sure all these people are basically going to be soaking the corruption mechanics of the fight. It will be half the raid, so 1 tank, I guess if you're 2 tanking it, 3 healers if we're 6 healing it, and 7 DPS if we have 14 DPS. Which we won't, we'll have more than that. I don't know why I just said the number. Alright, let's go. So, first mechanics we're going to see is the tank debuff. So we're going to talk about the tank debuff real quick. So what you'll see is you have the debuff Darkened Soul. Basically what it does is it applies every 8 to 10 seconds. It has no duration. It's a big dot and it deals heavy damage, and once it's cleansed, it can be cleansed. Once it's cleansed, it will do damage to players within 25 yards and give the Dispelling Healer 25 corruption. So what this means, first of all, the tank has to get out when it's dispelled, and also the people that are dispelling it are the healers that are within the Dream Simulacrum. So there's going to be a lot of communication here, healers. You're going to have to say, if you're down there, you're going to say what corruption you're at, because you want to still get as little corruption down there as possible, and you basically need to know when to dispel when he's outside of the raid by 25 yards. So that's the first mechanic that we need to talk about. This debuff will change throughout the fight, so I'll explain the next iteration once it gets done. Okay, second mechanic you're going to see, it's Nightmare Blades. So you can see this one target that's marked by the arrow. There's another target right here marked by an arrow. Basically what happens is these 2 targets have a swarm of blades go between them. So if this person and a person over here got targeted, the blades would just go all throughout the raid, and it does a lot of damage. So you have to get outside the raid. Most likely we'll have a raid marker like this purple diamond on this side just showing you where to go, and these 2 people you just need to make sure to be parallel with each other so it just goes in a line and just hits you 2 instead of the whole raid. Okay, so the second thing we're about to see is the add of the fight, which is called Corruption Horror. Well, the add of the first phase. You can see this Nightmare Blades again. Boom. you could see the blades sort of. Okay, so here's actually one of the ads. So this is Lurking Terror. These spawn every 20 seconds. And basically what they do is they fixate a player, and once they get to the fixated player, they do a good amount of damage and give 5 corruption. The way that you stop this is the player that has it fixated on them goes to a marker basically, and someone actually blocks it that's in the dream phase from getting to them and takes the corruption themselves. They have to be soaked, they can't be killed, they have way too much health. So basically just make sure anyone, so for, I think in this case it's targeting the boomkin, you do not want to be in a line in between the ad and the boomkin, or else you'll take the corruption if you're not sleeping. If you're sleeping, you should be soaking these ads for the rest of the raid. You can see right now, there it disappeared. There's likely a person dreaming right there. Here's the Dark Blades. I think you're going to get a good view from it right here. Yeah, perfect. See, that's basically what happens. Manifest Corruption. Okay, this is the most important ad of the first phase. It's called a Corruption Horror. Basically what it does is it does a large amount of AoE damage every 15 seconds, and it also gives the tank that's tanking it corruption, so the Dreaming tank has to tank it or else they'll be fucked. It does a swipe, so you don't want to be in front of it, and all DPS, you need to swap to this and burn as quick as possible, because every 12 seconds you're going to be getting 5 corruption. So the faster we kill this, the better for our corruption. One thing to note about the dream, once you go down in the dream, and once you come back up, all your corruption is cleared. So for these people that didn't go in the dream phase, so the demonology lock, once he goes down, all his corruption will be cleared, and when he comes out in the third phase, he won't have any corruption anymore. So it's actually better to go down the second phase rather than the first, but you know, it's just a luck based thing. You can see this ad has a lot of health, so it really needs to be focused as hard as possible. Okay, so that's basically the first phase. Nothing really too interesting besides the ads. Just kill that, or absorb the ads for those dreaming people, and make sure to kill the Corruption Horror. Make sure Nightmare Blades get outside of the raid so they don't hit the whole raid, and avoid the corruption mechanics as much as possible. You're not going to see them as much here because this is a normal normal fight, and in normal the corruption decays. But we will eventually see it. Just make sure anything that looks shadowy and like it's going to kill you, you just need to get away from. Okay, so here we just started the second phase. You can see he's in the dream state. His screen is a little green around the edges, a little blurry. And we get 2 or 3 new mechanics. The first new mechanic is the one you can see right here, Corruption Meteor. Basically what this does is it gives 40 corruption split among those who are within the radius. So basically you'll have a marker, so like Star in this case I believe, and the dreaming people will go soak it every single time. Pretty easy to deal with. And we're also about to see a new ad, hopefully. Here it is. Okay, here's the new ads. These are called, I can't actually read that right now, but I believe it's something horror. Basically what it does is Inconceivable Horrors, right? Spawns a bunch of ads, I think like 5 to 10 around the edges of the platform, or of the room. They have, you know, 31 or 3.1 million health right there. And basically what these do is once they get in melee range of the boss, they cast a buff on him that makes him do a large amount of AoE damage and gives corruption. So basically these need to be killed as soon as possible. Once they die, they drop a pool underneath them that gives corruption, and if it's not soaked within 15 seconds, it blows up and gives the corruption anyways. So dreaming people, you're going to want to clear this. See, this guy is soaking this pool right now. They're going to soak that pool. You just want to soak it as soon as possible. The only other mechanic that's added in this phase is Bonds of Terror, which maybe we'll see. I don't think we will. What it is a chain, just like Gorfine. Just like Gorfine, it's a chain between players. If you get within 3 yards of each other, it's removed. It's very easy. Just go stand on your partner. Here's the ads again. He spawns them every 20 seconds, so we're going to have to be dealing with them frequently in these phases. There's the corruption meteor. You just need to soak that. We'll have a marker placed so you know where to put the meteor. These guys are just sort of just going through this because I'm pretty sure you can just... Oh, actually I remember. In the beta, a lot of the corruption mechanics just weren't working. So I don't really have an accurate portrayal of how hard this is actually going to be. But it will be difficult to manage your corruption. And you will see a lot of these corruption mechanics. Like by now, I would expect people to be at 50 to 60 corruption that are down in the dream phase. Realistically, you actually want to get mind controlled in the dream phase before the third phase so you can get that damage bonus. Oh, perfect. Okay, so here is the 33% corruption mechanic. That's how big that radius is. It spawns, I believe it spawns there every time, as long as you are as far out as possible. Just try to get away from it. Don't be in front of the boss though, because he does a cleave. As long as you do that, you're fine. It's not really too bad. So the other mechanic we didn't talk about is the tank mechanic. So it's the same basic debuff. It doesn't have the same name. It's called Blackening Soul now, but it does the same thing. It's just heavy dot damage, but once it's dispelled, it still gives 25 corruption, so Dreaming Healers will want to cleanse it. But it does give an debuff that increases physical damage taken by 150% for 30 seconds. So you're going to want to swap at 3 to 4 stacks tanks, and you are going to not want to take anything while you have that debuff, or else you'll die. And the other thing, there's one more thing, tanks. This is the third phase now. I'll explain that in a second. But the other thing that I need to explain is Xavius actually gets a buff called Nightmare Infusion that causes his melee attacks to grant 5 corruption. Basically, what you're going to want to do, even if you have Blackening on you, the thing that increases your melee damage taken by 150%, even if you have that in your dreaming tank, you're going to want to take the corruption from Nightmare Infusion, or else the non-dreaming tank will eventually get mind controlled. So just be sure to taunt when that buff is up on him. I'm sure there will be a timer for it. It happens once a minute and it lasts 10 seconds. So there you go. We'll also have a tanking schedule that's more worked out when we actually see this. I believe this wasn't working in beta either. Testing, right? Okay, so this is the third phase. So what changes in the third phase? So all the ads, there's only one set of ads now, and it is all these fucking tentacles that are everywhere. They cast Nightmare Bolt, it gives corruption, and does moderate damage. They can't be interrupted. They can be killed. He still uses some abilities throughout phase 1 and 2. So in phase 1 we had Nightmare Blades. In phase 2 that disappeared, so you didn't have to deal with it, the line of swords. In phase 3 that comes back, it occurs every 33 seconds, compared to phase 1 where it happened every 15 seconds. Corruption Meteor will still occur. It happens every 45 seconds. Will be stacked throughout this phase, so it won't be too hard to deal with. Tanks are afflicted with Blackening Soul, which is the debuff from the first phase. And it also does the Blackened, which increases your physical damage taken. But Blackening Soul is different than Darkening Soul. Blackening Soul was the one that blew up once you dispelled it. In the second phase, the debuff doesn't actually explode. So, yeah. So Blackening Soul explodes and gives you that same debuff. So, basically, this is a race against the corruption. You are going to get mind controlled, and that's the whole point of it, because you want that 150% damage increase. But it's basically just a burn. These tentacles are not going to be killed, most likely. If anything, the tanks will just drag on top of the tentacles so that base cleave will get it. But these tentacles will not be killed. You're just going to basically burn against the time. We're going to lust here. People are going to get mind controlled, like I said, but you're just going to have to deal with it and just heal through everything, basically. You can see here they're dotting some of these up. That's just for procs. He's not trying to kill those. There's the 33% mechanic again. Just be outside that circle and you're fine. Hopefully we see the 66, but I doubt we will. You can see the boss goes down super quickly in this phase, especially when people start getting mind controlled, which I'm pretty sure no one got mind controlled in this. Oh, also, I didn't even realize he was still in the dream phase. So you can be in the dream phase while you go into phase 3. I doubt that'll happen in heroic, but if it does, you know, pop every cooldown and you'll get a second lust and some more cooldowns when you come out, so it'll be really good. So this, I'm just going to pause it. This really isn't an accurate portrayal of how hard this fight is going to be. All the corruption mechanics are difficult to deal with, and just the amount of, you know, communication it's going to take between healers and tanks, and all the all the ads are difficult to deal with. It's going to take a lot of coordination, so definitely be read up on this fight. Even though I tried to help with this video, you know, it's definitely better to read the Wowhead guide. It gives a lot more information than I can in this video. So just make sure to really research this fight before we get to it. Thanks, and good luck, and hopefully we'll have a good raid tier.